everybody. Thanks for coming back. It's been a little while. I haven't posted anything in a couple of weeks because I just got back. Big long road trip. We were gone, like 10 days. Traveled 3,000 miles by car. Camping most of the time. And had a great time. Got to see my best friend, my Navy buddy, up in Michigan, and spent some time with him and his family. And it was a really fun time. And now I'm back and trying to get back into the swing of things. Took a couple days to recover from all that, what do you call it, car lag? It's not jet lag because we didn't fly, we drove. So, but yeah, anyway, trying to get back into the swing of things, and not sure what direction this video is going, but maybe I thought I got a bunch of knives here in front of me, and I'll just start talking about some of these knives I'm looking at. I'll put a picture in right here. So that's a picture of these two knives I just got at a indoor flea market the other day. They were pretty rough. They still are. This one here I started working on a little bit, and it's still, I'm not sure if this is just gonna, I'm just gonna repurpose this piece of stag on another knife and call it because the pitting's so bad. But I paid $3 for this, and you can see what it looked like in the picture before I started trying to get some of the pitting out and everything. But it's so deep, that pitting is just really bad in this thing. But believe it or not, I was actually able to read the tang stamp. You're not going to be able to see it, I doubt it, but I can never get this thing to focus correctly. But it's marked York Cutlery Company, Solingen, Germany. And doing a little quick research on York, because I'm not familiar with them, I believe it was a fella out of York, Pennsylvania that imported these back in the early 50s all the way up until maybe the 1990s, but he started importing from China and Japan and other places. But in the early days of his importing and distribution of knives, I think he was primarily getting them from Solingen, Germany, from quality makers over there. I can tell you, just a little bit of work I did trying to clean this up. This is good quality steel. Unfortunately, somebody didn't take care of it at all. It was maybe lost in a river or in a wet basement, sitting in a corner. I don't know what happened to it, but it really got damaged bad. Now this other one, it's an old Western W38, stamped on the tang, which I believe they started doing that sometime in the 60s, I believe. They started stamping model numbers on the tangs of it, and they didn't have any markings at all on the blades. I assume the reason for that was just because you're here, I'll show you mine. So yeah, typically knives are stamped with these. Here's a couple of mine, and you want to stamp the steel when it's in its annealed state. Although these are hardened real high on the Rockwell C scale, but you know they will wear out eventually. So my assumption, Western, instead of having to replace these tang stamps all the time, they just started stamping on the brass guards, which I started doing years ago. I started doing that. You may have seen, if you've seen any of my past knife videos, examples of ones that I've done. I'll stamp them in aluminum and brass and all that. I do have some that I've, stamped the steel before I heat treated. Here's one right here I'm looking at, and I'll get back to that Western here in a second, but the stamp didn't come out perfectly straight on it. Let me turn this light on, maybe that'll make it see a little bit better in the light. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, I got it a little crooked right there. I've got a hydraulic press. I had a big one that I made out of 4-inch H-beam years ago, and I had it set up to where these clamped in that hydraulic press. I believe it was a 20-ton, and that I made, and you can stamp them that way rather than hit them with a hammer, and then you don't get a good one on the first try, and then trying to get it repositioned. This one's near impossible to reposition it for a second blow to try to get it deeper. So the press is the way to go. You can clamp your work in there and then, give it the pressure that's needed. But yeah, these still work, but they're very old. This one here is probably 40, close to 40 years old. This one here, and they're not cheap. I mean, like, I remember, I think I paid $75 for this, and this was like 40 years ago. So I don't know what they cost now to have made. Probably over 100, well over $100. But you see Allie's out here supervising me. Okay, so this Western, I picked this up for $5. You could, if you look at the picture I just showed of this when I first got these two at the same time. I got this one for $5, and I just now started on it. And unfortunately, whoever had it last, it was pitted pretty good. Not as severe as that Solingen Germany knife there, but still had some pitting in it. And somebody took a side grinder to it, or I don't know what they used, but I mean, they kind of messed it up in a way. There's some deeper dimples in here from, where they went too deep with whatever they were using. You can kind of see them right in here. But I'm not going to get them all out, but I just want to get it back to where it looks good and is usable again. So the pommel was real beat up on the end. And I haven't polished it yet, but just trying to get all those nicks and burrs and nastiness. It had a pretty deep gouge. I'm not going to get all that out. But Western used really nice rosewood for these handles, these split tangs. They came with either the stacked leather washer or rosewood, and on these split tang models. But this is I'll show it to you when I get it done and make a sheath for it. It's gonna come out really nice. This will be a nice addition to my collection. And this one here, I love this knife. I forged this probably 40 years ago, and I didn't sell any knives that I felt were had just major flaws in them, even if it was cosmetic, like that tang stamp, my logo being not straight, cockeyed a little bit. I wouldn't sell a knife like that. So, but I'm not going to throw it away either. And then in the heat treat on this one, it twisted on me. Can you see? And although I could have annealed it and straightened it back out, but I wasn't going to take the time. I mean, it holds a great edge. This is 1095 high carbon steel, and I just put some bluing on it. I left a lot of the forge marks in it. And it has a spalted wild olive wood handle. I love this wood that I put on it. But nice kind of Old West style, handy dandy sheath knife for multi-purpose tasks. I just love the style of it. I say it's a good quality piece of steel. Holds a really good edge. It's super sharp right now, and I'm going to make a sheath for this one. I made it, like 40 years ago, and I never made a sheath for it, and I just threw it in a drawer with, my junk drawer with junk knives, and I, pulled it out a while back and cleaned it up a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I think this knife deserves a good leather sheath. So that's on my list of my to-do list. I've got a lot of sheaths to make, a bunch of them. I found this one too, a railroad spike knife that I made there again, 30 to 40 years ago, and I never finished it for whatever reason. I know I made like probably a half a dozen of these, and for this one here, I think it might have been because of the twist wasn't consistent or whatever. I was like, not happy with it. Throw it in that junk drawer, and I pull it out. I'm like, you know what? Because I'm not set up to forge like I used to. I have a small little coal forge I made out of a hibachi, and although it'll do quite a bit, I melted a lot of lead with it, and this and that, forged a few small things, but it's nothing like the setup that I used to have. I used to have a big monster forge that I made. But yeah, nice little railroad spike knife that I'm going to finish up. It's not going to, there again, I'm going to leave a lot of the forging marks in it and stuff like that, but clip point blade. And then I might make it like a little stand or something for it to sit in, like some kind of a display stand, or maybe just throw it right back in that drawer again. Who knows? This knife here is over 100 years old, and my grandfather made this. He was a blacksmith, and he was a true blue blacksmith. He was born in the late 1800s. He was a World War I vet. And my grandfather actually went into World War I as a blacksmith, and my dad would tell stories about watching him at the forge and making things. And although he wasn't really doing blacksmithing still when I was younger, but he had a workshop and he was always working on stuff, welding, woodworking, and making things and fixing things around the house, that type of thing. But this I'm calling a skinning knife because I'm not really sure. I know he did do some farrier work, and at first I thought maybe this was some type of a hoof knife he made for shoeing horses and stuff, but that wasn't his primary thing that he did. He made wagons. I have a small wagon he made years ago, and I may show that in a video in the future. But yeah, this right here, because it's sharp on the outer curved portion of the blade, and it's really sharp and it's really good steel. But I'm calling it a skinning knife because it'll be perfect. Makes a perfect skinning knife. But I did a Google search. There's not one of these out there that I could find. So if any of you watching this, you've seen anything similar to this, and you know of another use for it, please leave it down in the comments and let me know. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I have actually right here, you see that hatchet. My grandfather made that. When my dad was a boy, he said he watched his dad make that hatchet, and he forge welded a piece of high carbon steel to mild steel, and forge welded that tip on it. And my dad was just amazed to watch his dad do all that, in the forge and make that hatchet. But yeah, that's one of my most prized possessions, is that hatchet right there. Actually, I'll get it down, I'll show it to you while we're talking about it. Yep, so here it is. My dad made the handle for it, I think. The handle was looking pretty rough, the original one, but yeah, he somewhere in here there's a forge weld. You can't see it. but he did mark it. His name was Albert, and so he's got some A's stamped in it here and there. There's one and there's one where he stamped stuff. I have one of his toolboxes. Actually, I have a couple of his toolboxes, and I'll do a video. I haven't opened them in years, and there's a number of tools in there that I'll do a video on, opening it up and showing you all the contents. There's a lot of tools I have here around my shop that were my father's and my grandfather's, but I use them still, you know. But the ones in the toolboxes that I have of his are either duplicate tools that I have more than one of that was his that I just put up, or tools that I just don't have any use for, you know. So yeah, we'll get to that. I'll show you that in the future. I've got some more. I'm going to try and keep this video short. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base and get my feet wet again, so to speak, in the videos. Oh, another thing too, I wanted to tell you, I've got plans to make a series of videos, and I'm gonna like number them or something, and they're gonna be working knives from around the world. And just the idea I got was, and I don't have them all made. I've got to make some knives to complete that, so I'll do videos on them as I complete them and stuff. But I'm not going to cover, you know, everywhere and every different type, and there's just way too many. But the common knives like Moras, Pucos, I'm going to do some American Indian style knives, maybe a couple of those, like a skinning knife and something else, you know. And I want to make sheaths for them, you know, appropriate sheaths for, you know, the style. And these are just going to be replicas, you know. They're not going to be actual, although a lot of these knives are still for sale online. You can get them, but I enjoy making things, so I'm going to make kind of like similar replica, you know, knives to those, or just knives that I've seen online that are super rare that I'd like to try and replicate a little bit. And I want to stick to not fighting knives, but like working knives, you know. It will be my main focus for doing this knife series. So yeah, hopefully you're interested in that, and subscribe, and come on back and watch those videos as I get them uploaded. I sure appreciate it. This is Dave. See you in the next one.